7-year-old Emma Morrison clutched her teddy bear tighter as she stared out the window of her father's black Mercedes. The city blurred past in expensive streaks of glass and steel, but all Emma could think about was the empty chair at breakfast that morning. Again. The same chair that had been empty for months now, where her father should have been asking about her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the day ahead. Instead, she'd eaten her cereal alone while their housekeeper, Mrs. Patterson, bustled around the kitchen in silence. Her father, James Morrison, one of the city's most successful real estate moguls, sat beside her scrolling through emails, his phone buzzing every few seconds with what he called important business. Emma had learned not to interrupt these moments. She'd tried before, tugging on his sleeve or asking simple questions about the buildings they passed, only to receive absent-minded nods and distracted hems that told her she wasn't really being heard. "Daddy," Emma whispered, "are we really going to spend time together today?" James glanced up briefly, his attention already drifting back to his screen. "Of course, sweetheart. We're going to that nice restaurant you like, remember?" But Emma remembered the last 3 times he'd promised the same thing, only to spend the entire meal on conference calls while she sat alone, pushing food around her plate, watching other families laugh and talk together at nearby tables. She'd memorized the pattern by now. He'd order something expensive for her, pat her head absently, then disappear into his world of business deals and phone calls. Sometimes she wondered if he even remembered she was there. The Mercedes pulled up to Rosie's Diner, a small warm-looking place that seemed completely out of place in James's usual world of 5-star establishments. He'd chosen it because it was quiet, perfect for taking calls without interruption. Emma pressed her nose against the window, watching families inside laughing over steaming plates of food, children chattering excitedly while their parents listened with genuine interest. It looked like a different world entirely, one where children mattered more than phone calls. The moment they stepped inside, Emma felt something different. The air smelled like pancakes and coffee, and there was a gentle hum of conversation that felt homey. A woman in her 40s approached them, her smile genuine and her eyes kind. "Welcome to Rosie's," she said warmly. "I'm Sarah. Table for 2. James barely looked up from his phone. "Yes, something quick. Corner booth if you have it." Sarah noticed Emma's sad expression and knelt down to her level. "And what's your name, beautiful?" "Emma," she replied softly, showing her teddy bear. "This is Mr. Buttons." "Well, hello Emma and Mr. Buttons. You know what? I have the perfect table right by the window where you can watch the birds outside. If you're touched by Emma's story so far, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. It's amazing how stories like this connect hearts across the world. And if you believe every child deserves to feel truly loved, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started with this incredible journey." As they settled into the booth, James immediately answered his phone. "Morrison here. Yes, I can talk now." Emma's shoulders slumped as she realized this would be just like every other meal. Sarah had been watching. She'd seen that look before, the look of a child hungry for attention rather than food. In her 15 years of waitressing, she'd learned to read the stories written in customers' eyes, and Emma's eyes told a story that broke her heart. This wasn't just a wealthy child being spoiled. This was a little girl starving for something money couldn't buy. She approached their table with menus and a warm smile. "Emma, what sounds good to you today?" Sarah asked, completely ignoring the fact that James was deep in conversation about property acquisitions. Can I have chocolate chip pancakes?" Emma asked hesitantly, as if she wasn't sure she was allowed to choose. "Absolutely. With whipped cream and strawberries." Emma's eyes lit up for the first time that day. "Really? Daddy usually just orders for me." Sarah glanced at James, still absorbed in his call, then back at Emma. "Well, today you get to choose exactly what you want." 20 minutes later, a stack of perfect pancakes sat before Emma, decorated with a smiley face made of whipped cream and strawberries. For the first time that day, Emma giggled, a sound so pure and genuine that it made Sarah's heart soar. Other customers in the diner turned to smile at the delightful sound, but James, still deep in conversation about quarterly projections, missed his daughter's moment of joy entirely. "These are the most beautiful pancakes I've ever seen," Emma exclaimed. Sarah sat down across from her while James continued his call. "You know what, Emma? You seem like a very special little girl. Tell me, what's your favorite thing to do?" Emma's face fell slightly, and Sarah noticed how her small shoulders seemed to carry the weight of loneliness. I don't know. I have lots of toys, but I mostly play by myself. My room is bigger than most people's houses, Daddy says, and it's full of everything a little girl could want. But sometimes—" She paused, looking down at her hands. "Sometimes I pretend my dolls are real friends because they're the only ones who listen to me talk." "What about your mommy?" Sarah asked gently. Emma's voice became barely a whisper. "I don't have a mommy. She went to heaven when I was a baby." Sarah's heart clenched, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. That must be very hard." Emma nodded, tears forming in her bright blue eyes. "Daddy says she was the most beautiful angel, and that she loved me so much she's still watching over me from heaven. But I can't hug angels, and they can't read me stories or help me with my nightmares." "Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Of course, honey. You can ask me anything." Emma glanced at her father, still engrossed in his call, then leaned forward conspirationally. "Where can I buy a mom?" The question hit Sarah like a physical blow. She felt tears spring to her eyes as she looked at this precious child who thought love could be purchased. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Sarah managed to ask. "Well," Emma explained with the serious logic of a 7-year-old, "Daddy can buy me anything I want. He bought me my dollhouse, and my pony, and all my pretty dresses. But I don't have a mom, and all my friends do. They talk about how their moms braid their hair and read them bedtime stories and kiss their owies better. So I thought, maybe if I asked nicely, Daddy could buy me one too." Sarah had to take a deep breath to keep from crying. "Oh, Emma, a mom isn't something you can buy in a store." Emma's face crumpled with confusion. "But why not? If they're so important, and if Daddy has lots of money, why can't we just buy one? There are stores for everything else." At that moment, James finished his call and looked up to see Sarah's emotional expression and his daughter's tears. "What's going on here?" he asked, suddenly alert. Sarah looked at him with eyes full of pain and compassion. "Mr. Morrison, could I speak with you privately for just a moment?" James glanced at Emma, who was now hugging Mr. Buttons tightly, then followed Sarah a few steps away. "Your daughter," Sarah said, her voice trembling with emotion, "just asked me where she could buy a mom. She thinks that because you can buy her everything else, you should be able to purchase a mother's love too." James felt the blood drain from his face. She said that? She told me about all the wonderful things you've bought her, but then she said she doesn't know what her favorite thing to do is because she mostly plays alone. She said you're always working and her nanny just makes sure she eats her vegetables." James looked back at Emma, really seeing her for perhaps the first time in months. Her expensive dress, her perfect hair, her sad, lonely eyes. I work hard to give her everything," he said weakly. "Mr. Morrison," Sarah said gently but firmly, "she doesn't need more things. She needs you. She needs someone to ask about her day, to read her bedtime stories, to kiss her scraped knees, to simply be present in her life. She needs to feel loved, not purchased." The words hit James like a sledgehammer. He thought about all the toys he'd bought to make up for missed bedtime stories, all the expensive gifts to compensate for forgotten school plays, all the material possessions he'd showered on her while withholding the one thing she needed most, his time. James walked back to the table and sat down across from his daughter. For the first time in months, he put his phone face down on the table. "Emma," he said softly, "can we talk?" Emma looked up, surprised. "Are you done with work?" "Yes, baby. I'm done with work." "Emma, I heard what you asked Sarah, and my heart is breaking." "Why is your heart breaking, Daddy?" James reached across the table and took his daughter's small hands in his. "Because I've made you feel like you need to buy love when you already have someone who loves you more than all the stars in the sky." Emma's eyes widened. "I do." "Yes, sweetheart. I love you so much, but I've been showing it all wrong. I thought buying you things was enough, but it's not, is it?" Emma shook her head, tears starting to fall. "What do you really want, Emma? Not what I can buy you, but what do you want from me?" "I want—" Emma's voice was small but clear. "I want you to read me bedtime stories. I want you to ask me about my day. I want you to play with me and not be on your phone. I want hugs that last a long time. I want you to love me like mommies love their kids." James felt his heart shatter and rebuild itself in the same moment. "Oh, Emma, I do love you like that. I just forgot how to show it. But I want to learn again. Will you teach me?" Emma launched herself into his arms, and for the first time in years, James held his daughter like she was the most precious thing in the world, because she was. Sarah watched from across the diner, tears streaming down her face as she witnessed a father and daughter finding their way back to each other. Over the following months, James kept his promise with a determination that surprised everyone, including himself. He restructured his entire business, hired more staff, and learned to delegate. He cut back his work hours from 16-hour days to 8, started reading bedtime stories every single night, and never missed another school event. Emma's teacher called to say she'd never seen such a dramatic positive change in a child's demeanor and academic performance. But there was something else beautiful that happened. Sarah became a regular part of their lives. What started as occasional visits to the diner grew into weekend outings, and eventually, Sarah became Emma's chosen family. James had been hesitant at first, unsure about bringing a stranger into their lives, but he saw how Emma's eyes lit up whenever Sarah was around, and he realized that love multiplies rather than divides. Emma had asked if Sarah could be her extra mom, and Sarah, who had lost her own daughter years ago, found healing in loving this precious little girl. She taught Emma to bake cookies, braided her hair for special occasions, and became the maternal figure Emma had been longing for. 1 year later, at Emma's 8th birthday party, James stood up to make a speech. "A year ago, my daughter asked a stranger where she could buy a mom. Today, I want to thank that stranger, Sarah, who didn't just answer Emma's question. She opened my eyes to what really matters. She showed me that love isn't something you buy, it's something you give freely, every single day." Sarah smiled through happy tears as Emma ran to hug both her father and her chosen mom. "The best things in life," Emma announced to everyone at the party, "aren't for sale. They're free, and they come from the heart." Sometimes it takes the innocent question of a child to remind us that love, presence, and family aren't commodities to be purchased, they're gifts to be shared. If this story touched your heart like it did mine, please share it with someone who needs to remember what truly matters. Subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of love, and remember, the greatest wealth isn't in what we own, but in how we love.